Dear students, in this module, we are going to talk about the impacts of stratification on Pakistani society. Uh, if we talk about the stratification and its impacts, definitely its impacts are pretty gigantic and pretty much influencing our whole social life. However, these impacts can also be based on two important classifications, that whether this stratification is based on your achieved status or is based on your ascribed status. So as a whole, let's see that how it influences or it impacts the Pakistani society. So first of all, it leads to inequality because we tend to make distinctions in among the people based on their social positions and based on their social status. So these inequalities are being witnessed almost in every sector of Pakistani society. Like, for example, in the health sector, we can observe that urban people have more facilities, health facilities, as compared to the rural people. Similarly, people of upper class and people of higher caste have more or easy access to the better health system as compared to the lower class or lower caste. Same is the case with education. We have better educational institutions which are available in the private sector as compared to the public sector, and we know that the those who can afford, they prefer to send their children to the private, rather elite schools as compared to the public schools. So this inequality is pretty much multiplying in a way that a, when a child from an elite background or an elite class background excels, he or she has more opportunities to excel in in his or her educational career as compared to the children from the lower stratification. Similarly, when they go into the job market, they have a good social networks, they have a good social capital, and they can capitalize all their resources, and based on those capitals, they have the high probabilities and and better opportunities for their professional careers as well. So it is in fact multiplying the inequality, and then it bounds the individual action based on their identification. For example, in the rural areas, especially, if uh, um, if someone is born to a low caste family, he or she is expected to adopt the profession of his or her parents. So it bounds the individual action, and the specification of social roles and societal laws are also uh, unfortunately favoring those who are on in the powerful positions or those who are in the higher social stratum of the society. So overall, it produces a lot more inequality in the society based on these stratifications. And health sector, as we have already discussed, that we have the expensive healthcare facilities. uh, we have the VIP culture where those who can afford are treated distinctively, rather luxuriously, as compared to those who are unable to afford. So health system is not based on the merit. For example, if if it does not depend on the how critical a patient is, rather the health system depends on to how much a person can afford for the healthcare. So different treatment quality and discriminatory attitude of the care providers. For example, if a person is of powerful position, he would be treated differently as compared to those who are not in powerful position or those who are from the lower stratum of the society. And then we also have another major problem, which is the unequal distribution of clean drinking water and unsafe environment in different zones of the city. Not only on the city, but also around the country as well, that the access to clean drinking water is becoming more and more expensive now, and people who can afford, they can have access to clean drinking water as compared to those who cannot afford, and those who cannot afford are forced to drink whatever or whatever quality of water is available to them, they are forced to drink. And similarly, if we talk about the environment, uh, people those people who can afford can have the better choices to live in the countryside of the cities. So there they have the less smoke, less pollution, and less environmental degradation as compared to the city centers or the mostly densely populated areas, where you find a lot of traffic, a lot of noise pollution, as well as a lot of environmental degradation. Education, as we have talked about, we have pretty much bifurcated education system that produces inherent inequalities right from the birth. And we have two education systems where elite people have more choices and have more easy access to the education system, whatever they can afford, as compared to those who cannot afford. So discriminatory methods of teaching are also being practiced in the educational institutions based on certain caste, or based on class, or based on certain ethnic groups as well. And stigmatization becomes an important factor in producing different qualities of education. There are certain teachers, maybe they do not adequately being trained, and because of that, they more often than not tend to label or stigmatize their students based on their certain characteristics. For example, maybe someone is physically disabled, unfortunately, by birth, and based on that disability, he or she is being stigmatized. Or maybe he belongs to a certain caste, which is often ridiculed in the society, and based on that, he is stigmatized. So, all kinds of stigmatizations are unfortunately being practiced in the educational systems or educational institutions as well. Then we have the language conflicts. By language conflicts means that uh, there is a great debate on the national level that what should be the principal medium of instruction or principal medium of education across the country. So some are of the favor that Urdu as a national language should be considered not only the lingua franca, but also the medium of instruction in the educational institutions, while others disagree and they say that English, being the international language, being the global language, should be the language of knowledge, should be the language of intellectuals. So these language conflicts are further creating a lot of disparity in within the education system, while particularly when elite schools, they are adopting and they are training a particular class, particular English speaking class, who have a value added advantage over those who cannot speak English in the society. And that ultimately leads to the job discrimination, because the inequalities faced in the education system are further extended in the job market. So, when we say that this stratification in Pakistan bounds the individual action, it means that an individual, based on his or her identities, those certain identities can be based on the ethnicity, based on language, based on the political affiliations, or maybe of any other criteria, but all these can bound the individual's action because he or she is constantly stereotyped, constantly labeled based on those characteristics and based on those ascribed identities. So that stops one to ask further questions in the society, and that stops one to further excel in the society. And when we talk about the specification of social roles, it means that we have assigned certain roles to certain statuses. For example, if a mother is bound to take care of the children, we would never expect this role from the father. Similarly, we preferred the specific professions like doctors, engineers, and bankers in the society because these professions are considered highly valuable in the society. That is why we assign more values to these professions as compared to the other professions. So, these specificities are further producing inequalities in the society. And father is considered the breadwinner of the society, so, being the male student, this society exerts more pressure on the male student as compared to the female student to enter into the job market because most of the females, after getting higher education, they are less likely to be entered into the job market because they are not expected to be the breadwinners. Similarly, and interestingly, children are bound to respect their elders and parents even when they have a wrong reasoning or they are not logical, rather they are exerting their decisions based on their authority. Children are supposed to be respectable and they are not supposed to ask questions. And similarly, again, which is very interesting aspect of our society, that elder brother of the family is supposed to be economically responsible for the younger siblings as well. So that creates a further disparity and a value added, rather extra responsibility merely based on the birth order of the siblings. So, if we talk about the societal law, all the punishments are considered unequal, and the our justice system is not considered reliable. It is also based on the stratification. Those who can afford, those who have the power, they have the power to exploit the justice system as well. So we have the different punishments for the poor as compared to the richer people. I would like to quote the examples from the traffic rules just to reflect that how societal laws are treating people based on inequalities. If you are traveling on the motorway, the maximum fine money that you have to pay for crossing the speed limit is almost 700 rupees. So imagine you are uh, traveling in a car, value of which is merely 400,000 rupees, and you are being fined the same amount. And another person who is traveling in a vehicle, value of which is almost 20 million rupees, and he is also paying the same fine. So, do you think that it makes sense, or is it just that this same amount of fine can exert the same amount of deterrence to all the people across all these social strata? No, because that might be threatening, that might have some impact on the person who is having the lower income or is traveling in merely a 400,000 rupees vehicle, as compared to the person for him 700 rupees are almost nothing. So you see that these traffic rules are also reflecting this sort of inequality in the society. And we also find that the bank policies are also based on such discriminations, where if you can have some property that you can show to the banks, from there they can assess or they can evaluate your position or your power to repay the debt, then you can ask for the money. Otherwise you would not be able to maybe open the bank account. So all these discriminations in our justice system are producing inequalities, which are the very visible impact of social stratification in Pakistan.